The sea has always carried secrets, deeper than the reach of man, older than the memory of stone. Waves crash against distant shores, but their whispers tell stories no book has ever dared to hold. There is a crown, woven from coral and pearl, said to shine with the light of forgotten constellations. Sailors once sang of it, their voices trembling with awe, as if the ocean itself leaned closer to listen. They called it the Crown of Poseidon, a relic not of power, but of harmony between land and water. Legends say it rests in the eternal abyss, a place where silence is alive and shadows dance like stars. It is not guarded by chains or curses, but by time, patience, and the endless rhythm of the tides. Those who seek it must not chase glory, for the crown does not bow to pride or ambition. Instead, it listens for hearts that echo the sea's calm and courage, as steady as the moonlit horizon. Tonight, we drift into that legend, guided by whispers of salt and storm, toward the depths of eternity. Long before maps drew borders, sailors trusted only the stars and the pull of restless tides. They carried stories, whispered across decks, of wonders hidden beneath the rolling waters. One tale rose above all others, told in hushed voices as lanterns swayed in the night wind. It spoke of a crown not forged by man, but born from the sea itself in an age beyond memory. The Crown of Poseidon, they called it, shaped from coral older than mountains and pearls like moons. It was said to shimmer with a glow that neither sunlight nor fire could ever truly match. No jewel on land, no treasure of kings, could rival the silence it carried within its curves. For the crown was more than ornament, more than relic, more than beauty made eternal. It was a promise, a bond between the sea's endless depths and the fragile world above. Those who dared speak of it claimed it balanced the chaos of storms with the calm of harbors. Legends drifted from mouth to mouth, carried by waves as surely as by word and song. Some said it could summon tides without wind, or still the fury of a raging tempest. Others swore it was not a tool at all, but a mirror, showing seekers the truth of themselves. Fishermen heard it as blessing, merchants feared it as omen, poets dreamed of it as muse. Yet no man, no woman, no ship's captain ever claimed to have held it in their hands. Perhaps that was the crown's secret. It could not be taken, only found when one was ready. And readiness, the sea reminded, was measured not in strength, but in silence and surrender. It was not conquest that opened the abyss, but trust in its stillness and its endless unknown. Many sought it with greed, but the ocean knows hearts more clearly than any polished glass. Those who came with hunger were turned away, swallowed not by waves, but by their own shadows. The stories endured because they were not warnings, but invitations wrapped in mystery. Each tale promised that the crown did not vanish, nor was it lost, but simply waiting. Waiting for a soul whose spirit beat in rhythm with the pull of moon and tide. Waiting for eyes unafraid of darkness, for hands that trembled not from fear, but from wonder. And so, sailors traced the stars, hoping they might lead to the crown's hidden cradle. They charted waters by memory, by compass, by instinct. Yet the sea held her silence. Night after night, they told the tale again, as though the words themselves were a compass. Lantern light would flicker, waves would knock against wooden hulls, and voices would lower. Always the story ended the same way. With longing, with awe, with the abyss left untamed. And somewhere beneath the endless waters, the crown remained, patient as the sea itself. The sea does not always call with storms or waves. Sometimes it whispers in dreams, softer than breath. One night, a wanderer awoke to the sound of water, though no river nor shore lay close at hand. The air was still, the world asleep, yet their heart echoed with a rhythm like a tide pulling inward. It was not fear that stirred them, but a strange sense of belonging, as though the ocean knew their name. The dream returned again and again, a voice without words, humming like seashells held close to the ear. Each time it grew clearer, like ripples spreading outward, urging them to listen more deeply. Soon, they began to notice signs beyond the dreams, woven quietly into their waking life. The smell of salt on dry wind, the cry of gulls where no seabirds should ever fly. Maps seemed to shift. Stars seemed to realign, pointing always toward a horizon unseen. It was as if the world itself leaned gently forward, guiding their steps toward a hidden truth. The wanderer carried no crown of kings, no sword, no anchor, only a heart restless for meaning. They had walked across valleys, through cities, across deserts. Yet the sea felt closer each night. Whispers followed them, not loud but steady, like a current flowing just beneath the surface. In markets, they overheard sailors speak of tides moving against the wind, of stars blinking strangely. In temples, old chants spoke of a crown that shimmered not for power, but for balance everlasting. Even in silence, their own breath began to sound like the hush of waves against forgotten shores. It became impossible to ignore, impossible to dismiss as dream or trick of the mind. The call of the abyss was patient, but it would not release them from its quiet hold. They began to wonder if destiny was not a path found, but a tide one must choose to follow. Each night, as lanterns dimmed and shadows stretched long, the pull of the sea grew stronger, and in that pull there was no threat, no demand, only invitation, like a door half open. They felt the world's edges blur, as if land itself was becoming an island within a greater sea. Birdsong, wind, and silence all carried the same tone, the same rhythm, like an ancient hymn. It was not the crown they sought, not yet, but the meaning that shimmered behind its legend. The wanderer realized they were no longer searching for a place, but listening for a voice. And that voice was not outside them, but inside, echoing with the patience of the tides. The ocean had chosen its listener, as it always had, not for strength, not for power, but for heart. So began their journey, not marked by ships or sails, but by surrender to the sea's unseen song. And though no one else could hear it, they knew the waves were waiting, calling them home. The ocean remembers everything, though its memory is not written in books or carved upon stone. Its memory lives in tides that rise and fall, in waves that return to shore though centuries have passed. Every ripple carries a fragment of the past, a whisper of moments lost, yet never forgotten. The sea holds songs of sailors, prayers of fishermen, and the laughter of children on forgotten beaches. It remembers storms that shook empires, and calm days when the horizon seemed endless and kind. Each current is like a page, flowing endlessly, telling stories too vast for mortal minds to hold. The wanderer came to sense this memory, not through sight, but through silence and surrender. When they stood by the shore, the water spoke without words, humming with wisdom older than time. It was as if the ocean did not speak to ears, but directly to the marrow of the soul. The Crown of Poseidon, legend said, was born of this memory, woven from harmony and silence. It was not a weapon to strike, nor a jewel to adorn, but a vessel of the sea's remembrance. To wear it was not to command, but to listen, to feel the rhythm of life within every tide. The ocean remembered both chaos and calm, holding storms and stillness in perfect balance. And so the crown became a symbol of balance, binding the abyss to the world above. The wanderer learned that the sea did not punish, did not reward. It only revealed truth. If one's heart was restless, the waves mirrored restlessness, echoing back with ceaseless motion. If one's heart was still, the waves softened, reflecting peace like moonlight upon quiet waters. It was not the abyss that tested them, but their own reflection returned through the sea's memory. Legends spoke of those who sought the crown, only to find themselves lost in its silence. They did not fail because the sea rejected them, but because they could not face their own depths. The wanderer felt both awe and humility, realizing the ocean remembered more than they could bear. Yet within that vastness, there was comfort, as though the sea cradled even their smallest breath. The abyss was not emptiness, but a living library of everything ever touched by water. It held the tears of lovers parted, the joy of reunions, the weight of promises unspoken. Every wave that touched the shore was a reminder that nothing was truly gone, only carried onward. The crown shimmered within this truth, not as treasure, but as a compass pointing inward. It guided not by maps or stars, but by memory itself, written in tides and hidden in silence. The wanderer understood that to seek the crown was to accept the ocean's memory within. And in that acceptance, they too became part of the endless story the sea would carry forward. The crown was waiting, not in darkness, but in remembrance, eternal as the sea's unbroken song. The stars have always been more than lights. They are a map etched across the endless canvas of night. Sailors read them like scripture, each constellation a compass guiding wooden ships through unknown waters. The wanderer too began to notice how stars shifted, aligning in patterns that felt like whispered instructions. At dusk, the first star appeared, followed by others until the sky pulsed with a language unspoken. It was not coincidence, nor chance, but design, a pathway traced in silver across the heavens. Legends claimed the Crown of Poseidon was hidden where sea and sky reflected one another perfectly. Only under the right alignment of stars could its resting place be revealed to a seeker's eyes. The wanderer gazed upward night after night, waiting for constellations to bend into forgotten shapes. Orion's belt seemed to tilt, the Pleiades shimmered lower, and ancient patterns emerged like memories reborn. It was as though the ocean and sky conspired, one mirroring the other in perfect rhythm. The map was not drawn on parchment, but scattered across galaxies, shifting with the breath of time. Each star marked not a place, but a step, a rhythm meant to be followed like a dance. The sea below responded, its waves glowing faintly with starlight reflected upon their restless surface. When the wanderer traced the path with their eyes, the water stirred as if answering back. The stars were teachers, patient and steady, never rushing but always guiding with quiet certainty. Their light was not command, but invitation, asking only for faith in what could not be held. The wanderer realized that following the map required no ship, no compass, only surrender to trust. Each night they walked the shore, aligning their steps with the constellations that moved like guides. With each alignment, the sea seemed to open, revealing glimpses of corridors glowing deep beneath. It was said the crown's resting place lay where the Milky Way touched the ocean's horizon. There, the abyss rose to meet the stars, forming a bridge of light for those who listened. The wanderer felt no fear, for the map was not a puzzle, but a promise already fulfilled. It whispered that the path to the crown was not straight, but circular, like tides eternal. To reach it was not to arrive, but to return, to follow stars until they mirrored the soul. Some nights the sky clouded, the stars hidden, yet the wanderer knew the map remained unchanged. For memory does not fade when veiled, and truth does not vanish when unseen by mortal eyes. Patience was the true compass, waiting for the night when all stars aligned with the abyss. On that night, the heavens would bend, and the sea would sing, opening the gate of reflection. And in that union of sky and water, the crown would shimmer, eternal, awaiting its seeker. Beneath the surface, where sunlight fades into shifting blues, voices have always lingered in the deep. They are not the voices of men or kings, but of creatures who carry the sea's forgotten wisdom. Whales sing in echoes that roll for miles, their tones heavy with stories of migrations older than empires. Dolphins weave quick silver sounds, playful and bright, as though laughter itself had taken a form. These voices are not words, yet they hold meaning, a language that slips past logic into the heart. The wanderer, standing by the water's edge, began to hear these tones within the silence of night. It was not hearing with ears, but with spirit, as though the ocean placed its hand upon their chest. Each call carried a fragment, a clue, shimmering like pearls strung together across waves unseen. Some voices hummed of joy, of discovery, of seas where light danced endlessly upon gentle tides. Others trembled with sorrow, speaking of storms endured in the weight of centuries unbroken. Together they formed a choir, endless and eternal, weaving a song of the ocean's living memory. The wanderer closed their eyes and listened, letting the music guide like lanterns upon a path. They began to sense a pattern, a rhythm linking one call to the next, like beads upon a thread. The dolphins led toward play, reminding the seeker of wonder, of curiosity untamed by fear. The whales spoke of patience, teaching that the longest journeys begin with a single, steady note. Other voices drifted in, softer than breath, like whispers carried through shells upon distant shores. They did not command, but invited, asking only that the wanderer trust the unseen tide. And so they did, letting the voices shape their steps, carrying them further into the waiting abyss. Legend said the sea itself spoke through its creatures, guiding only those who chose to listen. No map could replace the guidance of a whale's call or the laughter of dolphins in moonlight. Each voice was a compass, pointing not outward but inward, toward the heart of the seeker. To follow them was not to chase, but to harmonize, to join the great song already being sung. The wanderer realized this was the true test, to listen without seeking to control or possess. In surrender, the voices grew clearer, weaving together into a melody of hope and belonging. They spoke not of treasure, but of unity, of the crown that shone where all voices became one. The abyss, once silent, now thrummed with music, alive with tones that rose like a living hymn. And within that hymn, the seeker knew they were no longer alone, but part of the ocean's choir. The voices beneath the surface had chosen to guide, not by power, but by resonance of spirit. And somewhere in the depths, the crown of Poseidon shimmered, waiting at the end of the song. Deep within the ocean, past the reach of sunlit waves, there lies a gate woven from living coral. It glows faintly, as though each branch remembers the touch of starlight long since swallowed by the sea. The wanderer, carried by the voices of the deep, felt their path narrowing toward this radiant threshold. It was not hidden by force, nor cloaked in shadows, but by silence, waiting only for open intent. The coral seemed alive, pulsing gently, like the heartbeat of the abyss itself rising to greet its guest. Legends said the coral gate opened not for power nor for glory, but for hearts unburdened by greed. Those who came seeking dominion found nothing, only endless walls of silence and currents turning them astray. But for the humble, for the curious, for those who sought only to listen, the gate would awaken. The wanderer approached with no demand, only reverence, watching colors shift across the coral's glowing veins. Shades of blue deepened into violet, green shimmered like emerald fire, and gold bloomed faintly between. The sea around them grew still, as if holding its breath, waiting to see what choice they made. The wanderer reached out, not to take, but to feel, allowing the living coral to sense their spirit. At the touch, the coral pulsed brighter, sending a ripple through the water like a chime of glass. The gate began to part slowly, not broken, not forced, but unfolding like petals greeting dawn. It was a passage carved not by hands, but by the rhythm of the sea's own endless patience. Inside, the light deepened, forming an archway that led further into the abyss, calm and unthreatening. The wanderer stepped forward, guided not by sight, but by trust, following the path shaped by living stone. Each step felt less like walking and more like being carried, as though the gate itself approved. The coral gate was no barrier, but a mirror, revealing what lay within the heart of the seeker. If fear had ruled them, the coral would have remained closed, silent, a wall of untouchable beauty. But openness brought passage. Humility unlocked the glow, and patience wove the way forward. As they crossed the threshold, the wanderer realized the gate was not simply a doorway, but a guardian. It asked nothing yet, revealed everything, showing the truth of those who stood before its living glow. Beyond the coral gate stretched a chamber where the ocean's silence grew vast, yet strangely comforting. It was as if the sea had opened a secret heart, hidden from storms and untouched by time. The wanderer felt no triumph, only awe, knowing this path was walked not by conquest, but by trust. The coral gate closed gently behind, sealing the chamber with a soft hum like distant song. And in that sacred stillness, the seeker knew the journey had shifted, drawing them closer to the crown. Beyond the coral gate stretched a chamber vast and still, glowing faintly with the breath of the sea. It was not a cavern of stone, but of light, woven into shapes that shimmered like drifting constellations. The wanderer stepped carefully, each movement answered by gentle ripples echoing through the endless expanse. In this place, silence was not empty, but alive, carrying unspoken words that pressed softly against the heart. Floating orbs of light rose like lanterns, guiding the path with warmth instead of command or demand. The wanderer felt no fear, only awe, as though walking within the dream of the ocean itself. Then came the first vision, blooming across the chamber like a wave of silver mist. Figures appeared, not flesh and bone, but outlines shimmering in fluid strokes, formed from pure light. They danced slowly, swaying like seaweed in gentle currents, their gestures telling a story without sound. The wanderer watched as they painted scenes of harmony, of balance between the earth, sea, and sky. There was no war, no conquest, only the rhythm of elements flowing as one eternal tide. The figures showed lands nourished by waves, winds guiding ships without struggle, storms that healed, not harmed. It was a vision of unity, the kind that could only exist when pride dissolved into trust. The wanderer understood then that the crown was not a jewel of power, but a beacon of balance. Each figure dissolved into droplets of light, scattering across the chamber like falling stars. Another vision followed, deeper, older, showing seas untouched by human hands, vast and pure. Whales swam across these waters like living mountains, their songs weaving threads of time itself. Coral forests stretched without end, glowing brighter than fire, untouched by greed or careless destruction. The wanderer's heart ached with longing, sensing what had been lost and what still could be saved. The ocean did not scold nor accuse, but simply revealed, like a mirror showing truth without judgment. The final vision shimmered slowly into being, and the chamber grew calm, as if holding its breath. A crown appeared, resting upon nothing, yet glowing with the soft brilliance of countless stars. It was woven from coral, pearl, and light itself, shining as if carved from the soul of the sea. The wanderer reached forward, but the vision faded before touch, leaving only the echo of radiance. The lesson was clear. The crown could not be grasped by desire alone, but awaited the worthy spirit. As the lights dimmed, the chamber whispered like waves retreating, urging the wanderer further onward. The path ahead glowed faintly, a ribbon of silver leading deeper into the abyss of legend. The seeker breathed deeply, carrying the visions within, knowing the journey had only just begun. With each step, they walked not for themselves alone, but for the harmony the crown embodied. And in the stillness of that chamber, the ocean seemed to smile, as though watching with gentle pride. The path beyond the chamber curved downward, deeper into the embrace of the eternal abyss. The wanderer felt the water grow cooler, the light dimmer, yet the silence grew warmer with presence. Silver threads of light stretched ahead like veins, marking the way as though the abyss itself guided. Every step forward echoed softly, not with sound, but with a rhythm the heart could understand. The seeker was no longer walking alone, for the ocean's presence moved beside them like a friend. Currents shifted gently, wrapping around as though urging onward, whispering in a language without words. Soon the wanderer entered a vast hall of crystal, where walls shimmered with the memory of tides. Each surface reflected fragments of the ocean's history, a living chronicle etched in gleaming stone. Whales, dolphins, storms, and calm seas danced across the crystal, their shapes glowing faintly with life. It was a library without ink or parchment, where stories lived in light instead of words. The wanderer touched one wall, and visions bloomed instantly, flowing like waves into their mind. They saw the rise of islands, the carving of rivers, the shaping of coastlines by unseen hands. They saw fishermen guided by stars, sailors listening to whales, and children laughing in shallow waves. The ocean had given always, and in return, it asked only respect and gentle harmony. But not all stories glowed with joy, for shadows flickered, showing times when balance was broken. Waters darkened by carelessness, coral dimmed by greed, and creatures drifting without song or strength. The wanderer's heart ached, for the ocean carried not only beauty, but the memory of sorrow. Yet even in sorrow, the crystal walls shimmered with hope, as though wounds could heal with time. The seeker realized the abyss was not a place of secrets hidden, but of truths revealed. The Crown of Poseidon was not an object of conquest, but a vow, a promise of balance. The hall shifted, opening a path deeper still, the crystal walls glowing with farewell light. The wanderer stepped onward, carrying both the beauty and sorrow they had witnessed within. For the crown would not rest upon one who denied the whole song of the sea. Ahead, the silver threads brightened, converging into a spiral that led toward a greater silence. It was not an empty silence, but a waiting one. heavy with the weight of destiny. The wanderer paused, breathing deeply, letting the ocean's pulse steady the rhythm of their heart. Every vision, every whisper, every voice had prepared them for the choice that now approached. The abyss did not test with force, but with reflection, showing what one carried within the soul. And as the seeker moved into the spiral, the ocean seemed to murmur gently, almost like a prayer. "You are not here to claim," it whispered in silence, "but to remember and to restore." With those words echoing inwardly, the wanderer walked into the spiral, closer now than ever before. The spiral carried the wanderer downward, each turn weaving silence tighter like threads spun from eternity. The deeper they moved, the less the body mattered, until only spirit seemed to carry them forward. The water grew still, untouched by current, as though this place existed outside the reach of time. Here the abyss revealed no visions, no voices, only the weight of presence pressing gently upon the heart. The wanderer understood this was not a path of seeing, but of becoming, a test beyond sight. The spiral ended in a vast circle of stone, smooth and glowing faintly with its own inner light. No crown lay upon the floor, no treasure rested waiting, only emptiness that spoke louder than words. The seeker stood alone, the silence deepening until it became almost unbearable in its purity. It was then the truth rose. This place was a mirror, reflecting not the world, but the soul. Every memory surfaced, every flaw, every kindness, woven together like tides rising against the shore. The wanderer saw moments of selfishness, of pride, of mistakes made in ignorance and haste. Yet they also saw moments of care, of laughter shared, of patience offered without demand of return. The silence did not judge, it simply revealed, asking the seeker to accept the fullness of themselves. For only one who embraced shadow and light alike could wear the crown of balance. The wanderer knelt, not in defeat, but in surrender, whispering thanks to the abyss for its truth. Their heart ached, yet it also expanded, holding both sorrow and joy without breaking. It was then the chamber shifted, a soft glow blooming from the circle's center like dawn. The glow formed into waves of light, curling and folding until they shaped a crown once more. But this time, it did not appear as vision. It was real, shimmering softly in the silence. The crown of Poseidon floated weightless, woven of coral, pearl, and the breath of eternity. It did not shine with power, but with calm, a light that soothed rather than demanded awe. The wanderer reached out, not with longing but with reverence, hands steady as the tides. The crown lowered gently as though choosing them, resting not on their head but upon their heart. At once, silence blossomed into song, not of creatures or currents, but of the abyss itself. It was a harmony vast and endless, uniting every memory, every voice, every vision into one. The seeker wept without tears, overcome not by weight, but by the vast gentleness of belonging. For the crown was not possession, but union, a bond between human spirit and ocean's eternal soul. The chamber pulsed brighter, the spiral path dissolving into waves of light, carrying them upward again. The abyss had given its gift, not as conquest, but as a covenant bound by trust. And in that moment, the wanderer was no longer a seeker, but a keeper of the ocean's song. The ocean carried the wanderer upward, lifting them gently, as though the abyss itself breathed them to light. The crown's glow rested within their chest, not heavy, not sharp, but soft like a tide that never ended. Currents swirled around, weaving patterns of silver, guiding them toward the surface without haste or demand. The seeker no longer felt alone. for every voice of the sea moved with them, a vast choir. Whales sang in deep tones, dolphins danced in spirals, and even the corals pulsed with gentle rhythm. It was not a celebration of conquest, but of union, the ocean recognizing its new keeper of harmony. The waters grew brighter, shifting from shadowed blues into the pale shimmer of daylight above. For the first time in what felt like eternity, sunlight broke through, warm and golden upon the skin. The wanderer emerged, not as the same soul who once stood at the shore, but forever changed. The crown did not glitter upon their brow, yet its presence shone quietly in their every breath. They carried not a symbol of rule, but of balance, a living covenant between land and sea. The shore welcomed them with waves that curled softly, as though bowing in greeting without words. Gulls circled overhead, their cries bright, and the horizon stretched endless, filled with promise and calm. The wanderer looked upon the world with new eyes, seeing not division, but the threads of connection. Every tree, every stone, every river and current sang the same quiet song of belonging. The crown had taught them the truth, that power is not dominion, but balance, not command, but care. And so they walked the shore, not as master, but as guardian, listening always to the sea's voice. Stories would spread, as they always had, of the crown of Poseidon and the one who found it. But the truth would remain deeper, known only by the ocean and the keeper who bore its gift. For the crown was not a treasure to be displayed, but a vow carried in silence and song. Children would hear tales of shimmering coral and endless abyss, of visions beneath the waves. Sailors would whisper of a guardian, whose presence kept storms gentle and tides forgiving. And the wanderer would smile quietly, knowing the truth was not in the telling, but in the living. At night, they would return to the shore, listening as waves carried whispers from the abyss below. The ocean no longer felt distant, but a friend, a teacher, and a mirror of the soul. The keeper's journey was not an ending, but a beginning, as endless as the tides themselves. For every step taken on land now echoed beneath the sea, binding both worlds in quiet harmony. And the crown of Poseidon remained eternal, not upon a throne of coral, but within the heart. It would shine for as long as the sea endured, a light carried forward in gentleness and trust. The wanderer, once seeker, now guardian, walked on, leaving footprints kissed away by waves. And in the stillness after, the ocean sang, carrying the hymn of balance into forever. The sea settled into calm, waves folding gently as though the ocean itself breathed in quiet relief. The wanderer, now keeper, stood at the edge of the shore, feeling the horizon stretch without end. Every journey carries an ending, yet this one opened not to silence, but to a beginning eternal. The abyss no longer called with mystery, but with presence, a friend waiting just beneath the tide. The crown of Poseidon rested not in their hands, but within their being, a light unshakable. It was never meant as treasure, never forged for conquest, but born of balance, of harmony. The keeper understood now that to guard the crown was to walk in stillness, not in command. It meant listening to every ripple, hearing the voices of creatures unseen and honoring them. It meant guiding those who sought the ocean, teaching respect rather than hunger for its depths. Legends would rise, as they always had, shaping the tale into myths of power and majesty. But truth would remain softer, quieter, like a pearl hidden within the folds of coral. The wanderer knew that truth was not for all ears, only for those who listened with care. They walked the beaches, watching stars scatter across the night sky, mirroring the sea's glow. Each step whispered into the tide, carrying stories the ocean alone could understand fully. Fishermen at dawn felt gentler seas, sailors spoke of calmer storms, guiding them home safely. The Crown's gift worked not in spectacle, but in balance, unseen yet deeply present in all. Children grew by the shore with laughter, their games carried by breezes softer than before. Even the gulls flew lower, circling as though they too shared in the ocean's secret song. The keeper often returned to the abyss in thought, not descending, but honoring its silence. They remembered the visions, the spiral path, the circle of light where truth unfolded. And in quiet gratitude, they bowed not to the sea as ruler, but as equal, as kin. For the ocean had chosen them not to lead, but to belong, and through belonging, to protect. Seasons passed, tides shifted. Yet the covenant endured, written in waves, etched in winds. The world beyond the shore carried on, unaware of the harmony sustained beneath the surface. But the keeper did not seek recognition, for the Crown's promise was never bound by pride. It was a vow lived in silence, in reverence, and in the simple act of listening. When the keeper gazed at the horizon, they no longer saw distance, but unbroken unity. They felt the deep pulse of the sea in their chest, as steady as a heartbeat eternal. And they understood. The abyss was not darkness, but foundation, a womb of endless becoming. The journey that began in mystery ended in presence, in the gentleness of connection itself. And so the keeper walked on, horizon at their side, ocean at their heart, crown in their soul. The waves followed, whispering their hymn, carrying balance forward into the forever tides.